What's up, y'all? It's Jullien Gordon here. I hope you're well. I'm here to share my real estate journey with you. I just accepted the reality and the identity as a real estate investor. For a while, I had just been buying multifamily homes, but as of late, about the past month, I've actually stepped into that as an identity. Um, it was kind of like a side hustle or a hobby prior to that moment. And I think once you accept that you are something, it changes the way you move. Like somebody can say, "Oh, I write," right? But then for somebody to say, "I'm a writer," those are two completely different things, right? So I'm accepting it, and in fact, I'm here at a home that I'm in a purchase agreement. In contract with, and we're going through the inspection period. I just saw inside, and I wanted to talk about how to invest in real estate without gentrifying. And I've actually come up with some obstacles that occur when you are trying not to gentrify a neighborhood when you invest. So, um, first and foremost, I'll get into the financials, but Mama Jennifer, who runs a community bookstore on Bayou Road down here, she asks everybody that comes into her bookstore like these four questions, which are: why are you here? What do you want? What do you expect to get? And what do the people get? And I think those are, and she actually doesn't want you to respond to her. They are rhetorical questions for you to ponder for yourself. And my good friend Darren, uh, he after Katrina, he helped her maintain that bookstore. He brought a bunch of Stanford Business School graduates down there to help her find a new business model to sustain, and she's still here, which is exciting. So he introduced me to her, and I've been thinking about those questions. Why I came to New Orleans? Why am I here? Uh, I'm here because New Orleans feels like home. I recognize that I'm a transplant, um, but in all honesty, actually, I got into a debate not too long ago with somebody online about me being a black gentrifier, and I used to accept that identity, but then I came to a point where I realized that you can never call somebody who's been displaced, my homeland actually being Africa. Well, where in Africa, I don't know. My blood test traced me back to Kenya. But you can never call somebody who's been displaced a gentrifier. That's absolutely, that's pretty much impossible, because the reality is that I actually don't have a home. From a geographic standpoint, I don't have a home. Even when I look at Oakland, California, where I was born in San Francisco, raised in Oakland. I can't call Oakland home. Oakland is not the same place that I grew up in. And so, in fact, anywhere I go, I'm going to be in a transplant unless my intentions going into that community are pure, unless I hope to contribute more to that community than I take. Black people all over the world, unless you still live on the continent, it's almost impossible for you to gentrify. You cannot call somebody who's been displaced and can't actually point to a geographic location a gentrifier, because they're literally just trying to find a place for called home to call home. And so, why am I here? I came to New Orleans. People ask me that question all the time. I came to New Orleans in juxtaposition from the Big Apple to the Big Easy, from New York to New Orleans, um, because of the culture, because of the which is a black culture. New Orleans, I've traveled all over the country, and it's the blackest culture around in the United States that I know of. The food, the weather, the pace, the beautiful people. Um, those are some of the festive nature, the music, the affordability. These are some of the reasons I came to New Orleans, and yeah, and it was time, after being in New York for a decade, it was time to change. What do I want? What do I want? What do I want? What do I want? It's always the hardest question. We always know what we don't want, but what do you want? I want a place to call home. I want a place to root. I want a place to identify with. Um, yeah, that's what I want. That's what I want. And I know I'm not born here, but I know from the black migration across the West that many people from Oakland came through New Orleans before getting to Oakland. So when I'm here, I really feel home. It was a reason why Cash Money and that movement when we were in high school, why it resonated so strong with us young men in Oakland, is because from a historic standpoint, many of our people who were in Oakland found their way via the South through New Orleans. If you just look at the black migration across this country. So that's what I want. What do I hope to get? That's a hard question for me because I didn't really come here to get anything. I hope to be a contribution to this community. New Orleans is a lot smaller than Brooklyn, New York. I think about 310,000 people, and I really feel like I can make an impact here, a positive impact. And so that actually leads me to the fourth question: is what do the people get? And I hope that I can increase black home ownership here. I hope I can educate people on entrepreneurship and financial literacy. And yeah, that's what I hope and intend for the people to get, taken from my skill sets and my education. That's what I hope the people get. So now, back to the original question: how to invest in real estate without gentrifying the neighborhood. In this house here, I met the granddaughter. She was here to help make sure that energy could turn on the power so we could see the property. And she was telling me about the history. Her whole family had come through this home. They've had the home for about 42 years in their family. They are now in a better neighborhood. They're moving on up. They're in Gentilly now, and they're happy with where they are. It's one thing to invest and displace somebody, but when they've actually moved on, the grandmother owned the home, and grandmother passed away about 3 years ago, and they are renting it out, and they're ready to sell it now. So I feel good about this. Normally, you're not supposed to get emotionally tied to the people in the story, but I can't help it. So yeah. Now, I've been studying the Fair Housing Act and things of that nature, and from a gentrification standpoint, there's two critical things that make it hard to not gentrify, no matter who you are. And one is that landlords actually have to increase rents in order to make their property sellable in the future. So there's one house in Oakland that I was interested in, a multifamily home, but the rents were so low that it made no sense for me to buy it at today's price. Those low rents were worked for the person who bought it 30, 40 years ago, but for me to buy the home and have a mortgage payment of $5,000, but the rents are only $2,400, it actually makes it impossible for anybody to ever buy that, even though the seller, who may be black, wants to move to the South or move somewhere more affordable. They can't because nobody will buy it. And as a seller or as an owner, you have the right to have the cost of living increases and increase rent accordingly. And if you don't, then it actually puts you in jeopardy of not being able to ever sell your home. And so that's an interesting dynamic. It's weird that you almost have to increase if you ever want to exit. But one of the things that we don't fully take responsibility for is that when gentrification happens, is because we're choosing to sell, right? Because we're choosing to leave and go somewhere else, and we want to take that high price. The other thing is that the Fair Housing Act says that even though redlining occurred against primarily black people and steering occurred primarily against black people, the Fair Housing Act in 1968, and then I think updated in 88, doesn't allow you to rent according to any like class, like gender, race, or anything like that. So even if you own, you can't market to just black people or women or people of a certain religion. That one, there are some stipulations around that. So these are the challenges of actually investing in real estate and actually doing it in such a way that's ethical and that doesn't cause gentrification. It's a challenge, and I'm still trying to figure it out, and I'll let you know what I discover. All right? Peace.